Welcome to the Your Octave podcast, where you'll experience the unfiltered and inspiring world of impact-driven women business owners. I'm your host, Mary Grace Iniguez, a female multi-passionate entrepreneur and the owner of Social Register Network, and I'm on a mission to ignite the power within you. Here at the Your Octave podcast, we're all about sharing authentic stories, both the triumphs and the challenges, because it's through our life experiences that we can truly impact others. I believe that by opening up and embracing vulnerability, we can empower ourselves and those around us. So grab your headphones and let's celebrate the resilience, passion, and the determination of each impact-driven women business owner. Remember, your story is the spark that can light up the world. Let's make an impact and ignite the power within you.
Hello. Welcome back to the Your Octave podcast, hosted by myself, Mary Grace Iniguez, who's the owner and CEO of Social Register Network. Today, I am super excited to have my guest share her story, but also become that Octave to you today. And her name is Jodie Moncrief. Welcome to the Your Octave podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to share your story, but also for me to dive in and learn more. I'm always just lit up by women, their history, their journey, and what brought them here today, of course. So, Jodie, for anyone who hasn't connected with you, please introduce yourself and tell them a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. I grew up in San Diego. I've been married for almost 40 years.
Ooh.
And I'm currently a coach. I do workshops, women's empowerment. My signature program is aligning with your badass self.
Yes, I love that.
Yes, me too. It's the only word that I can think of to describe, I've been looking for words, but that's it. But I wanted to kind of share where I came and how I got here. When I was 13 or 14, I was having sex. I was drinking alcohol. I was doing multiple drugs, uppers, downers, saline, acid. I was ditching school. I was so bored. This is when I was 13 or 14. And it's important, I was thinking about this the other day, it's important to note that I had no community, I had no neighbors, I had no support system, and I had no religious affiliation or spiritual affiliation at all. So when I was 9, my parents divorced. That was my first trauma. And I ended up living with my father went through junior high and high school. And I had raging hormones. I had a lot of time on my hands. Mm-hmm. That's mainly how I got in trouble. And I remember, coming home. Once I did come home, I would look at the clock and go, oh my gosh, I've been watching TV for 3 or 4 hours and my dad's not here. And I was living with my dad at the time. My mom was with her boyfriend, and I would see her on weekends. And so I would actually call my dad at the bar and say, I have the number. Is Jerry there? And they'd say, Jerry, it's your daughter. And so I'd say, when are you coming home? So just to give you a feeling of the loneliness and the disconnectedness that I had and really didn't really have an identity. And this is the late 60s, early 70s. So when you think about it, my dad had me, custody, and he cleaned, he cooked, he, did everything. I mean, he was a cool guy. He did the best he could, right? Mm-hmm. And his main thing was to keep me safe.
Yeah.
Little did he know, I did not feel safe at all. I barely graduated from high school. Shocker, right? Mm-hmm. I'm ditching school. I'm doing drugs, sex, all this. And I do not remember any career counseling at all. And I don't know if they thought of me as a lost cause or if they did career counseling and I was on drugs. I don't remember. But by default, I became a waitress. And I ended up I had a chip on my shoulder all the time. Mm-hmm. Chip on my shoulder, always angry, always just, waiting for someone to say something to me, chip on my shoulder.
Oh my gosh. I just have to add that's how I was.
I know in the podcast I was listening to last night with Gigi, with you, I thought I can relate to that so much. Like, mm-hmm. Yay, put him up, come on.
Yes. Like someone was I'm ready. So say
Yes,
something
I'm
back or
always on
do
the,
something. Yes.
yeah, yeah, don't mess with me. And of
Yes.
course, I've been practicing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I barely graduated from high school. So I had broken up with my boyfriend, and my mom and I were living together in my late teens. And she said, I'm going to take you to an astrology reading. I paid for an astrology reading for you for your birthday. And I thought, that's cool, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so she takes me to this place, and it was amazing. There were crystals hanging from the ceiling. There were all types of shells and peacock feathers and more crystals and little fountains, waterfalls on the side. And all women were running this organization, and it was the 70s. And they were wearing pastel flowing gowns, and they had a boutique with really cool stuff in it, a bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'm home. I'm home. And they had pictures of Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
Paramahansa Yogananda, Gandhi, I can't remember what other ones, but Eastern and Western masters. And their whole thing was, we're all one.
Mm.
And so I thought, wow, this is
Yeah.
so cool, because the few times that I had been to church with my friends and their parents, it didn't feel right. It felt boring, sit down, stand up, just everything. I just felt like people were just like robots there. And I didn't have a good feeling at all.
Mm.
And so I thought, this is heaven. I'm telling you, this is what church should be like. This is awesome. So I started taking oneness classes once a week. Then I started working in the boutique once or twice a week. Then I started drawing astrology charts, and it ended up that I was there almost every single day. It was a cult, and I didn't realize it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it was very similar to what I've heard and read about Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
Very much. A lot of mind control. And there are some signs that I think now, and because I was so disconnected and wanted to be loved and wanted to be accepted, it was just like I slid right in. I was like, they're a perfect candidate, right?
Yeah.
And so 3 years went by. Okay. So 18, 19, 20, 21. And all of a sudden, it wasn't fun anymore. It was very controlling. Everything was black or white. So they said there is no gray. It's black and white. And this is the only way. And fear was instilled in us. And
Can you provide an example? Can you provide an example of like what they would say?
They would say, well, one thing is that, life is black and white. There is no gray. They would discourage outside affiliation.
Oh.
They gave us the idea that if we left there, we were like walking the face of the earth, knowing that we were with the one, and we turned our backs.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy duty.
Yes.
Heavy duty.
And you were young, like 18, 19,
Yes.
20, 20. Like
Yes.
that is a young age.
Yes.
Yes.
And again, I was the perfect candidate, right? And so many people were staying there out of fear of what was out in the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
We were given spiritual names. So we weren't even relating to ourselves as we came in. We were relating to ourselves as this different person.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when it started not feeling good, I just went, wow, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. And so I had a meeting with a couple of people, and they tried to talk me into staying. And so I lied and said I would. And then I ended up leaving and not coming back. But I didn't know who I was when I got out. I had this other name. I was wearing different clothes because they had kind of like a Star Trek theme. So we were all wearing kind of Star Trek outfits.
Were you required to wear that like anywhere and everywhere?
It was encouraged.
Oh, okay.
It was encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would go to the mall and do some kind of, I was a zealot. I was so excited because I want to share all this with people, right?
Yeah.
And about oneness and all of us. And, overall, it was so positive in the beginning. And then they had really good music and just the whole thing. And it just felt really good until it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I left, it was really hard to transition back into my life and reach out to the friends that still I was kind of sneaking in contact with.
Yeah.
Sneaking in contact with.
So you weren't allowed because outside world wasn't allowed. So you weren't allowed to be friends with other people outside of this cult.
Well, it's funny. They would discourage it. They would discourage it. So, and then this is before the internet and all that. So, but it was definitely mind control. The biggest thing was fear. I was, when they started putting the fear on, there were so many people that just stayed because of that. They were afraid of what the outside world would be. I was a little bit, but that didn't keep me there. But the whole thing about, I stopped trusting myself. That was the worst part of it, and just handing over my life to them.
Yeah.
So I slowly got back into, my life and didn't like school, shocker, right, at the time. And I felt so disconnected in the learning process, and because it wasn't experiential, and that's how I learned. And I didn't go to college. I wasn't encouraged to go to college. Just, get by, just, graduate. And I had this thing happen where a friend was a legal secretary, and she said, I'm leaving and you can take over my job and I'll train you, and the attorney will train you because he's a sole practitioner. And so I had that career for 12 years.
Oh, wow. So, I used to do that. Yes. That was like my past life. I was in the legal field, legal secretary, worked myself up, obviously, in the law firm.
Yeah, and it is a past life, and the money's so good. Yes, but I was not good being in a desk, right? Being in a desk. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. When I was 21, right as I was leaving the cult, I think I was still in there, my dad died suddenly of a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
And I was on Long Beach. He was in San Diego. Anyway, I did not want to let myself feel the pain and the grief, because I thought, I know if I do, because I wasn't a feeler. I wasn't a feeler. I was just, give me anything to numb out, right? Drugs, sex, anything, rock and roll. And so I truly believed that if I let myself feel, that I would end up, I pictured it. The guys in the white coats, they had me on each side, and they were taking me to the mental hospital, and I'd be there my whole life, and I'd die. So I didn't have any emotion when he passed away. And so I just stuffed it. And then I went back to being on drugs and being promiscuous until I met my husband, who I found him. We knew each other when we were 13. And I really found him in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta. Of all places. And so, to make a long story short on that, we ended up getting married. And I still did not have any feelings about my dad. I was stuffing it, and I could barely even talk about my dad. It was in my throat, and it was very painful. So in my early 30s, I went to a hypnotherapist, and I said, I need to deal with this. It's been, over 10 years. Can you help me, get in touch with the grief? So that's when my healing began.
Yeah.
And then I love this part, is that I signed up for a 1-year personal development program. So I was going, early 30s, kind of a time that we start kind of looking around, right? And so I signed up for this program. I got to see that I had value. I identified my values. I had confidence and courage. And I just felt so good after the 1 year. And the facilitator at the end said, I think you can do this. Why? I'm going to train you to do this. I'm going to mentor you, and you do this because you'd be really good at it. So that's when I started doing the workshops in my early 30s.
Wow.
And it was my first, confidence boost, And so,
you know what I love about this part is that right now in 2024, there's so many of them popping up all, life coach this coach that, this coach this. And I
Yeah.
love that yours was from the beginning, way
Mm-hmm.
before pandemic, way before the world kind of shifted to this coach
Yeah.
thing. And so you're a real coach. You lived it, you breathed
Yes.
it, and you went
Yes.
to certification, the education for
Yes.
it.
Yes. Yes. So anyway, that was so exciting. And then I kind of went through some times where I had another thing happen where I was on the job trained for nonprofit. And I was in nonprofit for about 12 years. I worked myself up to vice president of youth market, and I had a nervous breakdown.
Mm.
And you say what I say, whatever that is, but I know I had it. And so I lost my self confidence, and because so much was into who I was as in my work role. And I know we all do that, right?
Yeah. Can you share like the experience of your nervous breakdown? Because I know a lot of listeners, this can help a lot of women who maybe they thought they didn't have one, or it's like, oh, yeah, whatever. That was just, I was overwhelmed, how we
Well,
put it off.
I was getting my performance review, and I had always had exceeds expectations. And something because the culture of the organization, it was very toxic, I'm going to say. Even though it was a great organization and I met so many people, they're still my friends, la, la, la. But they gave me a less than exceeds expectations way on the other side. And it was not warranted. There was no warning. Because usually, if you're slipping, your supervisor is going to go, hey, we need to bring you back up. But it was like from here to there. And I just blanked out. It was so shocking to me. I just like left my body. I don't even know how to describe it. I just was emotional. I just felt like the scum of the earth, victim, everything
You
that you
tied
want to.
your identity to the work that you were doing and how you performed.
Yeah. Right. Who I am, right? And so went from here exceeds to way down. And so that was another healing process. And then I went through this period of when I was good enough, healthy enough to go back to work. I was so low self-esteem. I fell back down that I thought there was nothing that I could do. And I looked for office jobs, and I took jobs like bookkeeping, things that, telemarketing, fundraising, because I was in fundraising. And so I felt like a round square peg in a round hole. And I got fired a couple times.
Because it wasn't in alignment with you.
No, it was so out of alignment. But I had dipped down so low in my confidence, even though I had been doing the work, that I couldn't get back up. And I had such low self-esteem. I just fell down. And so I did a lot of work on myself, a lot of work. And one day I just came to the conclusion. I said, you know what? I want something where I can be professional and I can give great customer service. I can have unlimited amount of income and freedom. Freedom, that's one of my main values.
Yeah.
And so I took the real estate exam 10 years ago and became a real estate agent. And so I do that and my workshops, and I'm such a happier person. And obviously my confidence levels up, and I feel like I'm living my values of fun, freedom, friendship, and inner harmony, personal development, wisdom, and one of my favorites, integrity.
Yeah. I love it. Let's talk about values, core values, because what I see is your life shifted and transformed. You had a transformation because you did nail down your core values, what was important to you. And once you discovered that, then you're able to declare, okay, well, what does that? And what would I love to do? And that's why you took the real estate exam. And then you love to empower women and host these workshops, and you were already in personal development. It just made sense for you. It aligned. You were in alignment. And so for a lot of people, I believe that sometimes we're conditioned. We're conditioned from our past, things that we've grown up, how we were grown up, we were raised or whatnot. But also sometimes we're conditioned with our circumstances of the present. And we just I think I hear a lot of people say, well, that's just how it is. Like, this is just how life is. You go to work, you pay the bills, and whatever, you become a mom, you become a wife, and you just do that every day. Like, you just over and over and over. And, the goal, one of my missions is for women, but also men, but women are very close to my heart, is to be able for them to dream again. Because until you declare your values, number one, and you're able to declare what is that dream life you want to build, and I don't care what it is, you won't know where to go. You won't know what decisions to make. And do you want kids? Do you not want kids? Do you want 5 kids? And maybe you want a nanny to help because you want to create those boundaries because that's important to you.
Yes.
So you're the expert in this area because you did host a workshop with us in regards to, honing in your core values and why it's important. Can you share with us, why is your core values important aside from, the part I know, but you're the expert?
Well, I was just thinking that when I was going through the period of re-entering work after being unhealthy mentally and only thinking that I could only do very limited things and, take the crumbs, so to speak, I was so out of my value system. I mean, here I was, I'll never forget. I was going against my values and it felt crummy, and I did it anyway because I thought I'll give you an example, because I just thought my confidence level's so down. I can't do, this isn't, I'm not worthy of this. So I'll never forget when I took the telemarketing job for fundraising, I was taken into the bullpen. You know what that is? Where you've got all these cubicles that are open and we're all sitting there with phones.
I've been in that situation too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I walked in, it went so against my values and so against who I was, but I had such low self-esteem at that point that I thought, this is all I can do. But I felt myself going against my values in retrospect, right? And then I took another job that I got fired from. I was doing bookkeeping for this golf company that had like 25 golf courses. And I would sit there and just reconcile 23 different bank statements. That was my only job.
Yeah.
So it was totally, so freedom, no. Forget that. Fun, no. Integrity. Oh, and I loved it. The guy was very into his sexual harassment. It was after smoking wasn't allowed in offices. He allowed it. He just, so I picked like the worst, not only did I pick, a lower place that I was used to working, but the low, the total low. And so I know what it's like to be depressed and not be in line with my values. And I want to say that it wasn't just then. Today, when I am going against my values and I'm not paying attention, I'm either not being discerning with my interactions or I'm saying yes to everything that I still am learning to filter my values even today.
Yeah. How do you know what are your values?
Well, I do a session where we narrow them down from 35 to 5. But guess what? Since I've seen you, I'm encouraging people to have however many they want.
Yeah, I love that.
It was like 5. You have to have 5 because my mentor taught me, you get 5. So I have 7.
Yeah, I think I have 7 too. And I've always heard that it was actually less. Like, I've had someone say that we should choose 4, but I chose 7. And the way I was able to determine what my core values are for anyone who hasn't done this work, definitely talk to Jodie. But if you're trying to figure out, okay, do I have my core values? Do I not? One way I was able to recognize that is what Jodie said is I started saying yes to things that I just felt like, I really don't want to go. Or then when I go, I'm just like in the worst mood ever. And like, I'm like, there's nothing here. I'm in the worst mood. I'm not going in with an open heart. And I leave saying it's a waste of time. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to check myself. Like, what is important to me? And why do I keep saying yes to things that are not important to me? And so that's when I was like, you know what? I need to sit down and really take those things that are important to me and put it on paper versus just keeping it in my head and saying, family is important to me. Integrity is important to me. I actually took out a piece of paper, wrote down what was important to me. And then I looked at the items and most of them are the same. So what I've declared is relationships is important to me because under relationships is family, my relationship with my husband. So I had like family, I had relationships, building connection. A lot of them are very similar when you actually start writing them all down. And then you're able to pinpoint, family, relationships, connections. Oh, that's relationships. Like those three are relationships.
Yes, I love that you did that. And really what we're doing is we're creating our version, our definition of success, because we all have a different definition of success. So yours is, what you were saying, relationships.
Yeah.
And maybe it can be narrowed down to maybe 3 or 4, but I was trying to get out of semantics and just saying, pick yours but it is a process of elimination. I really believe that when we're feeling off, there's something off with our values. We're going against our values in some way, every single time.
Yes, that's a good point to make. And that'll allow for anyone listening to really evaluate that. So if you have not done it, because I know there are many of you who have not, definitely sit down and do that because it's so important in the decision that you make, but also not only in business, but in your personal life. And it's declaring what you want. And let's talk about how women, we feel bad for doing that because we're, how I was raised obviously is, and maybe that's not how I was raised. I wasn't told this, but what I saw in my family is the woman took care of her family. She always cooked for her family. The older sibling was always there for their family, no matter what. And I think that depending on what your conditions are, we take that on and then we put off what we actually want to do, what our dreams are, there's people who share that, I felt like I needed to just be humble all the time. And so I didn't go after more. I didn't tell people what I was doing. Right? So
yes, I feel like that's the main thing that my clients have in common is that they don't make themselves a priority.
Yes.
They are people pleasers. They need to set boundaries. And we are conditioned. We really are. We're conditioned. We're programmed, whether it's silent, messages or verbal messages or the media. The media is geared to make us want to be more, feel like we have to be more, have more, and do more. Be more, have more, do more. So all of that kind of plays in. And when we do take time for ourselves, sometimes it can feel, in the beginning, it usually does, feels off or funny or like we're doing something wrong because we're so conditioned, don't you think?
So what I felt was, I felt selfish. I felt like, it's not about me. It's about my son. It's about the family. Even as, as small as getting my nails done. Like years ago, right? Because getting your nails done is not a cheap thing to do. And I remember I'd be like, I'm going to spend $60 with tip, just to get my hands done, my manicure. I'm like, I could just spend that on my son. Like, I feel bad that I could go do my own nails. Like I would do that. I would really talk myself into it. And my husband is such a beautiful person. And he would be like, get your nails done. Like, go do it. Have fun. Like, go. And every time now, it's every 2-week thing for me. And he's like, have fun. And I'm like, because for me now, it feels like a chore because that's not self-care. It's part of my keeping, hygiene, right? Keeping that intact. But I think it's awesome to have a support system, because I think you mentioned in the very beginning that you didn't have community or support. And being around women like you and being around women who are modeling that, but also encouraging you to do that. Because I think for me, it was, even though I felt bad, and it was interesting because my mom always took care of herself. She had facial. She didn't get her nails done, but she got facial. She always got her hair cut and her hair done. And then I, for whatever reason, took it upon myself to think that that was selfish. And then what opened my eyes to it is actually the previous CEO of Social Register. So when she was, she became like a second mother to me, a mentor to me, and she always got her nails done. She always had her hair done. She always, got facials. She always got massages. And I just saw that, and she would share with me why. She was like, gosh, I'm feeling stressed. I need to book a massage. I need to do this. And she modeled that. I feel like she, again, I refer to her as my mentor. And if we have more women lifting other women and telling them, and also modeling that in kindness, not just like, I'm getting my nails done, you're like, if you're not, like, no, there's
and we are the sum total. I believe we are the sum total of all of our teachers and mentors and role models that were around us and continue to be around us and were around us. And that's who we are. That's what makes us one of the things that makes us so special.
Yes,
individual.
I love that. Yeah. So I guess what we're saying is we're giving you permission. You don't need permission, but whatever that is, you want to do, if you want to dye your hair purple and that's going to make you freaking feel happy and confident, go and do it. Because this is one thing a doctor told me, because years ago, I was, in quotation, if you're watching the YouTube channel, you'll see me, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. And for many years, I was battling this. I basically had ulcerative colitis, in quotation. So it's in the family of Crohn's disease. And so, as you can imagine, I was going to the restroom all the time. I was stressed out. I would have rash, like all the things was going on. And I remember when I would blow off my appointments, because he would tell me, okay, you have to see me every 6 weeks, because I was on a medication called Humira, and you have to be monitored when you're on that. And I would skip my appointment because I was busy with work. My son had, he was an athlete, so I was taking him to his things. And so I came in, and I remember him telling me, if Mary Grace doesn't take care of Mary Grace, you're going to be in the hospital and you cannot take care of your son. You can't take him to his football practice. You can't work. You can't do any of that.
Thank you, Dr. Ye.
Yes, exactly. Because I remember him till today. And even though I was kind of misdiagnosed, that right there, I'll always remember, because he's right. If we don't take care of ourselves, if we are not 100% mentally, emotionally, and in our health, there is no way we'll be able to show up for our business and the people we love.
Exactly. And I think because we were so ingrained and so programmed, so conditioned, take a back seat, you're not the priority, that, when you are doing it, it's hard in the beginning. And with setting boundaries, because people that don't set boundaries are usually people pleasers. We do that. And so I've had clients say, oh, I felt so mean that I was setting a boundary. But afterward, you don't feel like that.
No.
When time goes on, because you're used to it.
Yeah.
But you're just like, oh, was I being mean? But making ourselves a priority. Thank you, Dr. Ye.
Yes, thank you. Because that was the beginning of it, because I used to be someone, and I'm sure, Jodie, you can empathize with me, like in the past, is I used to be someone, if I had a headache, I was like, well, I said I was going to go and I'm going to go. And I would be miserable. And then the next day I'd be sick as heck because I just pushed my body to go. And also because maybe in my mind, I was conditioned in that hustle culture.
Yes, I'm anti-hustle. I'm all about
Yes.
relaxing, napping, daydreaming.
Yeah.
Daydreaming.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that.
Yes.
And for me, I think also I was conditioned that if you weren't doing anything, you were being lazy.
Oh, got to be productive every
Yes.
second of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You take a nap, you're lazy. You're
Yeah.
laying around. Oh, daydreaming? What do
Yeah.
you think you are?
Yeah. It's
Exactly.
insane. And I used to be sick all the time. I used to have headaches all the time. I remember, granted I had a baby when I was 16, but still I'm at my optimal health at a teenager, 16 to 21, like optimal health. And I remember I had a best friend, and she's still one of my good friends today. And her husband and my husband now, obviously, they used to work on cars together all the time. And her and I would hang out inside. And I remember I was so sick. She took care of my son, and my son was like barely 1. And I remember her and I talking, and she was like, I was telling her I'm always sick. Like I always have a headache. I always like all of a sudden have these flu-like symptoms. Yeah. So if you have flu-like symptoms, don't blow that off. It's not the nature of the weather. Because I used to say, oh,
No.
well, maybe because the weather's changing. This is why I'm getting these flu-like symptoms.
What did you end up being diagnosed with?
I supposedly had ulcerative colitis. So that's the inflammation of your colon. But at the end of the day, looking, now, because I no longer take Humira, I decided to get off of that and try to go a homeopathic way. Yes, thank you.
Woo.
It's been about almost 6 years. I haven't been on that. And I love Dr. Ye for what he told me, but I no longer see him because he was a specialist, a gastroenterologist. So, of course, he's looking at where the problem is, and that's what he's going to see. But what I know now is my cortisol, my stress levels were through the roof, out the door, down the street, probably in another state and in another freaking country, because I was always stressed. And because it became a norm for me, I didn't even recognize that I was in stress. And I didn't recognize I had anxiety.
There's so many people out there that have that. I know.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling crappy is the norm.
Yeah.
We're so used to feeling bad.
Yes.
Wow.
So I would always have headaches because now the stress levels were crazy. That shoots your immune system, obviously. And so I always had headaches. I always had pain right here. And that's a sign of stress right here on your shoulders and your neck. That's a sign. Number 1 sign of stress. And flu-like symptoms all the time. And as soon as I did personal development, that was one of my main things. Life coaching, Reiki. I saw a Reiki master who did Reiki healing on me. I have a beautiful circle of women who have wisdom, who have life in them, who were just telling me, okay, try this, try that. I've been there, and I don't want to see you end up with a heart attack or whatever, right? Whatever that is. And just beautiful people around me who love me. And these are not even family. These are people I've met through social register and business. And they got me into meditating, journaling, the Reiki, energy healing. And since the stress level has been at bay, what I also, looking back, because my stress was so insane, it inflamed my colon. And then, of course, gluten is not good for you anyways. Sugar is not good for you anyways. Those are the things I love. So it was inflamed, and then I kept eating that stuff. So then I was getting worse and worse and worse every day. So as soon as I lowered my stress levels, I noticed that, I don't really get flares that much. Like my stomach doesn't bother me. I don't get sick that much. And then what I notice is if I eat too much gluten is when my stomach would bother me. So then I was like, okay, let's stop doing that, because also my joints started to hurt. So then it made me look into, okay, what am I eating? Like, what am I putting into my body that is causing the arthritis or the pain? And I had a team member who worked for me, and she was like, you should try getting rid of gluten, like cutting it out little by little and seeing if it relieves the pain in your joints, because that's inflammation. I did that. I didn't cut it cold turkey. I just cut it. I was eating bagels for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, like gluten galore. And as soon as I did that, the pain subsided. Then, girl, I saw photos of me and I would compare the photos and my face literally like shrunk because it was inflamed. My eyes were like smaller because my cheeks were inflamed.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
the big inflammation is, I think, one of the biggest culprits.
Yes. And that starts from stress.
Yes.
Yes, you can have an underlying disorder or disease, but look at
Mhm.
your stress levels.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, okay, so you had hormone levels going crazy. So,
Mm-hmm.
one doctor for the colon, one doctor
Yes.
for the hormones,
Mm-hmm.
Thank God for us having teams of our health team. Like I have an acupuncturist, I
Yes.
have a spiritual business coach,
Mm-hmm.
I have a Reiki, you have the different people that are, what am I trying to say, and regular massages, a team to keep us up to speed, up to optimum health.
Yes. And it's just like business when you need a business coach. Well, in life, you need a life coach. You need personal development. Like you just said, a Reiki, massage, acupuncturist. It's not, I'm going to say this, but I'm Filipino. We don't believe in that. Like we believe, we were
I get
taught
it.
that, no, you're just being a crybaby. Like you deal with it. Yeah.
Right. Woo woo.
Yes. You deal with
Right?
it. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yes. Buckle up, buck up, right?
Yes. Yes.
Buck up, buck up.
But I can say today that I'm the most, not stress free. There's still always going to be some kind of stress, but I do know how to nip it in the bud. So if I recognize this starts hurting, I'm like, okay, you need to slow it down. You need to start walking, meditating, doing something. It allows you to really use the tools that you now have and recognize it before you go into a breakdown because it shows up different for everyone. For me, it was hitting my stomach really bad.
Yes, I'm trying to get off gluten now, so I'm kind of going through that with my diet and exercise. It continues to be a challenge. That and meditating more than a few minutes, just quiet time.
Yeah,
that's my main goal.
Oh, I love it. So, what is a advice, Jodie, that you can give another woman as an Opta today who is trying to navigate life and maybe who has gone through adversities similar to you or not, and how to rebuild themselves? Like, what are some steps to that?
I think there's a lot to that. I think one thing is acknowledging that you have issues that you need to deal with, and then accessing the resources and thinking outside the box when it comes to our physical health.
Yeah.
And get your team going. And it's not going to be just a pill, because I have gotten off 5 of 6 medications.
Yes.
Because I was high blood pressure, high statin, this, that. And so I've gotten off all but one. But it's taking time. And sometimes people have a hard time with that because Eastern medicine, it just takes a little bit longer, or holistic or anything like that takes a little bit longer because we're so used to just popping a pill.
Yeah.
And so be patient and look at your options. And there's help out there. There's coaches, me, anybody. Just, feel it with your heart, feel it with your heart and see if it's a match in whatever area that you need help in.
Oh, I love that. And be open to it, because I think that's like the main thing. A lot of people don't want to look at it and they don't want to be open to it. But unfortunately, if you don't look at it and you're not open to it, you'll never find the answers. You'll never be, I would say, for me, I say healed. You'll never be healed from whatever that is. And be your optimal self, that next level you. That is you. That is what you are going to be. But you have to be open to it. It goes aligned with showing up as your badass self. So what does that mean to you? Why was your workshop named that?
The main reason it was named that is, I say, a badass knows that she grew up being programmed that she's not a priority. She's, here to serve others as a girl, a woman. A badass knows that she can get beyond that. A badass has healthy boundaries and is not a people pleaser, is not afraid to say no without giving an excuse.
Yes.
You can say, no, or that doesn't work for me. And then the other part of it, among other things, because I have a list of 35. The other thing is controlling. When you're beating yourself up, get rid of that. Stop now. Do not beat yourself up. That's the worst thing that you can do for yourself, is just, love yourself. And I really believe in the law of attraction. And I believe that what we put out there, we're bringing in. So do a reality check and see what are you bringing in? What are you bringing into your life, and take responsibility for it.
Oh, those are awesome tips that you just gave him just by declaring, and sharing with us what your workshop entails. So how can they get in contact with you, Jodie?
I have a website called transformyourlifeoc.com.
Okay, awesome.
And then I'm in Social Register. I'm a member, so
Yes.
I go to the meetings, right?
She's a member, so you'll see her at virtual events, live events. She's at all of them. And also she speaks at a lot of our women events virtually and in person too. So if you're a member, you'll be able to connect with her as well. So thank you so much, Jodie, for sharing your story today and also impacting another woman and sharing some nuggets with us as well today.
Thanks. And thank you for being you and being the mentor that you are, the role model.
Thank you so much.